What's up guys, Luke from 8-Bit Plus back again with another refurbishment video, and today we're going to be tearing down, cleaning, refurbishing, and putting back together the PS4 SLIM CUH-2215B the right way. So if you have a PS4 SLIM that has seen better days and you don't have the extra cash to have a professional like me to do it, or you're just looking to get into this type of work, this is the video for you. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's fix your shit. Okay guys, so now we're ready to start tearing down our PS4 SLIM for the first time, and me pulling that top piece off, yes, it really is as easy as it looks. There's no screws holding it in, just a couple of clips. So you just kind of pop those two front sides off and it comes right off. And you're gonna see me kind of like just line it up. When we're taking apart this top piece, we're just gonna need a Torx 8 security screw and a Phillips 0 or 1. I usually bounce back and forth between 0 or 1. Just make sure you're not stripping the screws. That's the biggest thing, and you're using the right bit size. And also you're gonna see me actually grab a rubber magnetic mat. I just grab these mats so that we can organize our screws. I would say it's actually even more important here that we keep track of where all of our screws are, because there are a lot on this top side. There's not too many, but on the bottom side there is probably at least 25 to 30 screws, and little tiny guys, and they're all different sizes. So it's just good practice when you're first tearing these down. You always want to make sure that you have good organization so that everything goes back the right way and you're not forgetting screws when you put it back together. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and move from the top part to the back side. You don't really have to do it in this exact order that I am, but I mean, if you're following along with this, just do it in the same exact order. It'll help you to not get confused or miss certain parts. And at this part, we just need to make sure that we remove the warranty sticker that's on the back side of that. And what I use is a craft knife. Just get that sticker off, and underneath the sticker is a 8 Torx screw bit. So we're gonna pull that out. We're gonna switch our bits over to the 8 Torx, and we're gonna unscrew that. As well as you have the hard drive to take out. The way that you do that is there's a little clip that you just got to undo. You can pull that clip off, and then you can unscrew the Phillips screw that holds in the hard drive and slide that hard drive right out. And now that we have that hard drive out, we're gonna just pop the piece out. And as you can see, I'm kind of freaking out because there are so many stinking screws. Thank you, PlayStation, but no thank you for all these screws we got to take out. And what we're gonna do here, and this is a really good practice, not just when you're taking apart the PS4 SLIM, but also just any new console that has a lot of screws in it. We're gonna mark all the screws with a Sharpie marker, or at least like the different types of screws with Sharpie marker. So as you can see, I have a black Sharpie marker here that I'm marking all the black screws with beforehand, because I don't need to check these screws, they're all the same. But we're gonna start taking out the silver screws, and these are a little more tricky. There are some silver screws that are a little longer with kind of a screw pitch that is meant for going inside of plastic, and then there's machine type screws that are meant for screwing metal pieces together. I'm gonna color code those so that when I go back through, not only do I have good organization with the magnetic pads, but they are all color coded as well. And I would suggest you do the same. Just get a couple of different colored Sharpie markers and mark these spots as they come out. And it's also really convenient. They have arrows actually engraved in the metal sheet that points to each screw as well, so you can just fill engraving with the color. And and that'll help you a lot as you put this back together. We're gonna speed this up a little bit for you guys so you're not here all day, but there are, I'm not joking, a lot of screws here. Okay, so now we're gonna start taking out the antenna and some of the ribbon cables. There's two little modules at the top, well, for us it's the bottom right corner, but for me it's the top left corner. There's two screws that are holding those in. They're very similar to the other screws that we had been taking out previously. So we're just gonna take those out the same, but then you just kind of have to pull up on the antenna. There are a few pieces of tape that are kind of holding them down just to keep them in place during manufacturing. It's not that big of a deal if you get rid of those. I never had any problems with that. But you know, we don't want to be destructive at the same time too. If you can retain them, retain them. If not, don't worry. And then we do have a ribbon cable here holding the power and eject module in. Those are just pressure fit. Same with the second one down. That is the ribbon cable for the laser connection, I believe. No, I'm sorry. That one is for the actual spindle motor. And then the next one down is for the laser connection. And you're gonna see, I'm gonna show you a couple different ways that you can undo that connection, because it is not pressure fit. It's actually held down by a lid, and you want to be really careful. It's very easy to break these connectors when you take them apart. I recommend using a spudger, but if you're like me and you've been doing this for years, you can use your fingernail. I have been known to do that in a pinch. And then we do have one last ribbon cable that we have to pull out, and that is pressure fit as well. But once those are all out and disconnected, we should be able to lift our metal shroud up and out of the way. It's really important that we make sure we retain all of our thermal pads. As you saw there, there's actually thermal pads that connect to that metal shroud. Just make sure all of them are either stay with the motherboard or they stay with the shroud. You don't want to lose those because they cool your VRAM, and they are pretty important to the cooling of the system overall. So make sure you keep those together. And we're gonna pull out the clip now that holds the APU unit to the heatsink, and then pull out the little pressure mounted plastic piece. I totally didn't just make that up, but be careful when you lift that up, because it does snap if you lift it up at an angle. It's not super strong. It's some kind of brittle plastic, so you just want to make sure you're very careful when you're pulling that that little piece up. And now we're gonna flip the system back over and remove the heatsink. And it's really good to do this because the cable that connects the heatsink to the motherboard is really short on that bottom side. So it's really hard to get at. As you can see, I'm still kind of struggling with getting that ribbon cable out. But if you pull the power supply out and then de-thread the ribbon cable on the other side, it gives you enough slack so you can actually remove that. So you can see me still fiddling around with it, but don't be like me. Flip it over. Come on, Luke. You can do this. Okay, so now, as you can see here, I'm gonna de-thread it. on this side, and that's going to give me the slack that I need to really get at it on the bottom side. So I just kind of push the ribbon cable through, and that's going to give me that slack that I need to remove it from the motherboard. And we still have a few more screws to take out. So that bottom shroud piece should be completely free. We do need to take out the screws for the fan. I believe there's 2 Phillips screws holding the fan in, as well as 3 or 4 Phillips screws holding in the drive. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. And now we're going to start working on the drive. There's a couple Phillips screws. These are Phillips 0 screws that we have to remove. We got a couple of them to take out on the outside of the case, and they are just kind of around the edge of the drive case. And we want to continue to remember that we need to keeping this stuff organized. It looks like the extra screws that I'm pulling out, I'm just putting in that bottom left corner mat. You can replicate the same thing. And the top piece should slide right out. But we want to take these rollers out of the drive. I just like to take them out when I'm refurbishing a console, because they tend to get pretty dusty and just gross, because people are feeding discs into these drives with like schmutz on the bottom of it, and it just gathers on these rollers. So if you're having issues with your system accepting discs, maybe it's not doing it quite as well as it once did, it may be because there's some dust buildup / just debris buildup on these 2 rollers. So we're gonna take those out for cleaning, as well as while we're in here, we want to clean up the lens mechanism. So the way we do that is we're gonna take some 90% isopropyl alcohol, spray it onto a Q-tip, and gently rub the eye of the lens. And then we will flip it over to the flip side and dry it. And I like to also use the side that we just cleaned the lens with. Just reuse it on the spindle, because that thing will get nasty. So we want to rub it across the rubber of the spindle and just kind of like just sticky it, you know, in a way. Get that debris off, just kind of clean it up so it's spinning the disc, there's no skipping or anything like that. And the way we clean these rollers, or the way I clean them, is I just take a paper towel and I just kind of douse it with alcohol, and then I'll just rub the rollers all the way around on the paper towel just to get all that debris off. And now it's time to start to put it back together. We've done all that we can do in here. Now it's time to backtrack. So we got to get those rollers back in. It's a little complicated, guys. Just make sure you just take it slow. Make sure if things aren't fitting, it's probably because you have the rollers put in on the wrong side. What I like to do is put one roller in, connect it to the gear, and then that little clear white plastic piece that holds the 2 rollers together, it fits into a groove in that first roller. So you're gonna see me pop this first roller in and then grab that little gear and fit it into the first roller and just kind of let it stay there. And then we'll connect it with the second roller and then pop the second roller in at an angle. I know that doesn't make a ton of sense, but just try to watch this as a visual aid and just mimic the same thing. And if it seems like off or wrong, it's probably because it is. So, you know, you can always backtrack and just take your time. It's a lot easier than it looks. All right. On the motherboard side, this is just a refurbishment. We're not doing any kind of repairs or anything. So we're gonna just take off this old thermal paste that the manufacturer puts on, and it just cakes on, guys. It's gross, it's low quality. They don't want these systems to last 10, 20, 30 years like their older systems do. So they certainly don't use the best product on their consoles. So we're gonna remove that old thermal paste, and we're gonna put some Noctua brand thermal paste, the best thermal paste I've ever used onto this motherboard. It's gonna run cooler, and it's just gonna be a happier PS4. So we're gonna clean it up with some Q-tips, rubbing alcohol, little paper towel action. Make sure you get all that thermal paste off of the chip, and then we can prep it and get it ready for putting the new thermal paste on. But before we do that, we wanna get the other side where the thermal paste was stuck onto the heatsink. So we're just gonna spray directly on the heatsink, rub that crap off, make sure you're not smearing it, make sure you're cleaning it, and really get all the stuff that you can, get it up and off, so that when you seat it back down with that Noctua brand thermal paste, it makes a nice tight seal. And just on a side note, if you don't know what thermal paste is, it's basically a compound that connects your main APU chip up to your heatsink. And you can kind of think of it as a gasket on an engine. When you have bad, crappy gaskets that are all worn out, you're gonna have leaks in your engine. You're gonna be leaking oil. You're gonna be leaking different fluids. You want to make sure you have good quality thermal paste on there so that it's cooling to its highest potential. And we're gonna just use pea size of thermal paste on the APU unit. Usually these thermal paste kits, they come with a little spreader. I like using them. Just put a pea size dab on top of it. You know, just the shiny part, that middle shiny part, you can spread it with the heat spreader. So now we have all the case pieces, the plastic pieces, all cleaned up. Not rocket science, guys. Just take all the plastic pieces that don't have motherboards connected to them or any major metal pieces and go and clean those suckers with some soap and water. Scrub it, clean it, get all that dust and grime and crap out. Be careful where the buttons are, and you can clean the outside too. So when you put it back together, it's gonna look good as new. Just make sure that you get all the water out before you start putting it together, because that's all bad too. You want to make sure that this stuff is all dry before you put it back together. Okay guys, so now is time to just start working in reverse. We've stayed organized, we've put our screws in a orientation that we can remember, and now it's time to reassemble. And all the work that we did in making sure we're organized is gonna help us now. So we're gonna speed this section up, but I still wanna leave it in here so that you guys can kind of see it working in reverse. I know personally, going to YTU for many, many years, and by YTU, I mean YouTube University, and learning this repair stuff, it sucks trying to work backwards on a video that is just teaching you the tear down part and not teaching you the putting back together part. So we're gonna time lapse this, pause it if you need to. We're still gonna give it all to you so you can see the full process. So that was the teardown, cleaning, refurbishing, and putting back together of the PS4 SLIM model CUH-2215B. If you got any value out of this video at all, do me a big favor and smash like, as well as subscribe for more content just like this. And lastly, guys, I'd love to know, what's your favorite part of console repair? My favorite part is taking apart something that is broken and giving it new life. It's a great feeling of accomplishment that I get even to this day. Let me know in the comments section what your favorite part is. But until next time, guys, Luke from 8-Bit Plus signing out, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.